Okay, we're live. Well, actually, we're recording. It's episode 2 of the Magnificent Bastards, the first and only podcast by Ruth Stage.
Yes.
Yes, we are a off-Broadway theater group, multimedia organization. We got a lot of things going on. We're working on a web series. We've got our writer here today with us off camera. He's going to be observing today's episode, Steven. Steven, you want to give a shout from the background?
Well.
Anyways, I'm Matt DeRogatis, and I'm joined by Joe Rosario.
What's up?
We are the Magnificent Bastards, although lately the way that I've been eating, I might be a fat bastard, because I understand addiction now. I really do. I feel like I have a food addiction at times. I mean, I know when to stop it, but like I can't have one. Like when I feel like being bad, I'm really bad. And I've just been like on a bender, a food bender since Cat and a Hot Tin Roof ended. I can't have one slice of pizza. I need 5. I can't have a chicken parm sub. I need extra chicken, mozzarella sticks, tiramisu. I went to the doctor the other day to just get something checked out. I put on like 20 pounds already since Cat and a Hot Tin Roof.
Lucky for you, I know how to solve that issue. All I have to do is dangle a roll in front of Matt and say, your shirt needs to be off for this. And before you know it, he's at the gym for 6 hours a day.
Yeah, so I think that's the key to me staying in shape, is giving me roles where I have to be shirtless on stage.
That's it.
Because otherwise, I just don't care. I let myself go. Anyways, there is a third Magnificent Bastard, the star of last episode, DJ Scally, the prodigy.
Howdy, everybody.
My mom is a big fan, Miles. She's like, who's that young guy that, his voice is a very good podcast voice? And
She doesn't believe the earth is flat, clearly.
well,
Like
that
any
was
sane person.
Well, I mean, are you calling me insane because I believe the earth is flat?
Maybe a little bit.
Tell them who taught you that voice method.
Yes. Joe was my original acting coach who guided me through the J.G. Wentworth commercial. He guided me through a couple other roles back in my acting days. And he was the man. So, if you ever have acting questions, preparing for a role, any sort of writing, that's actually where Steven comes in as well. Joe is your man.
Now, couple of interesting things. First of all, we want to denote the passing of the Iron Sheik. Yes. God rest his soul. Yes, he passed. We're recording this on June 8th, so he passed yesterday.
But, we had an inkling he was going away, because as you can see, the Iron Sheik, he has 1 foot already in the casket. Well, he was on his way in.
Yeah, so
Bring the mic closer. Yeah, excellent.
So he passed at 81. Joe, I think you got to bring your mic closer.
Good stuff.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so he passed yesterday at 81 years old. One of my favorites. That's why we've got the wrestling figure from him.
Remember buy one of his recordings? Like remember he used to have this thing.
Well, he used to have like an app to wake you up.
Well, it was like before the apps, there used to be this thing where you would pay him like $50.
Oh yeah.
Phone number. He'd call up and he'd like, "Hello, this is the Iron Sheik. Fuck you.
Yeah,
Fuck you."
he's known. If you ever watched Iron Sheik on the Howard Stern show,
Yeah,
it's hilarious because he can't stand Hulk Hogan, and when Howard Stern brings up Hulk Hogan, the Iron Sheik starts getting all worked up, and it's very, very funny. But he had an app that was like an alarm clock, and a lot of people think that The Rock made up the word jabroni. That's not the word from The Rock. The Iron Sheik made up the word jabroni. And when I lived in New York City many years ago, I downloaded the Iron Sheik alarm clock, and you could have like 8 or 9 different commands, and it would be hilarious. You would just hear, "Wake up, you fucking jabroni!" So it was very, very amusing.
a true character, to say the least. But now he's in that big Bedouin tent in the sky, looking down on us.
Also, Joe, people are going to think we recorded the episode on the same day, but we actually did not. You're wearing the same shirt as episode.
Yes, this is my
your uniform.
podcast shirt. Yes,
your podcast uniform. We're both wearing our Ruth Stage hats right now.
Skull cap, skull shirt.
Yeah. No. And we got our coffee cup too. So we're rolling out some merch, as we said. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to touch real quick on episode 1. We're off to a great start. A lot of views, a lot of downloads already. The most viewed YouTube video that Ruth Stage has ever put out, which is great. I think that is a testament to Flat Earth Dave's popularity as well as Ruth Stage's popularity.
More hours, but it's okay.
But, the interesting thing is we talked last time with Flat Earth Dave, and it seemed when I said, why don't you come back on? We've got to finish this Flat Earth marathon that we're on. He seemed a little hesitant to want to do it. And then the next day, I got an email from him, and he's like, I want to come back on, and I want to bring some of my friends. So I'm making a sports analogy here. This feels a little bit, I don't know if anyone's going to get this analogy, but I know the viewers will. Everybody knows how much I can't stand LeBron James, but let's just say for a minute that Scally's LeBron James. It feels a little bit like the 2016 Warriors losing to LeBron James and feeling like they have to go out and get Kevin Durant to help. So it feels a little bit like Flat Earth Dave wasn't anticipating like the matchup. Like Scally was the underdog.
Yeah.
He wasn't. Yeah. So he's got to bring in reinforcements now.
Scally was the dark horse here.
Yeah, I mean, if this was a basketball series, it was like everyone thought Flat Earth Dave was just going to come in and blow him out the gate, and Scally took game one. Just shocked the world, and now Flat Earth Dave is like, I got to bring my friends on. So.
Yeah, around the world, right?
That Scally was this barrage of useless information tucked away in that little brain of his.
Yeah, so Flat Earth Dave is going to be coming back, and he's going to be bringing reinforcements.
Round two, do I have back up?
Scally, if you want to bring some reinforcements, yeah, we'll have a Flat Earth Royal Rumble.
See if I can invite Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, man, another jabroni. Speaking of jabronis. Anyways, let's get into today's topic.
Yes.
For those that have known me for any extended period of time, they know that I haven't always made the best choices in relationships. In fact, you might say that I've met a few narcissistic women here and there. But I also feel that, narcissism is very prevalent, not only in the world, but especially in the industry that we're in, the acting industry. And it's like everybody says that, you all know someone who's been affected by cancer. Everyone has been affected by cancer in some way. And I really think the same can be said about narcissism. Maybe you just don't know that the person you're dealing with, whether it's your mother or your brother or your girlfriend or your husband or wife or whatever.
Or all of the above.
Yeah, or all of the above. Maybe you don't know that they're a narcissist, but, when you look into sort of defining some of the behaviors, it then becomes eye-opening and you're like, oh, wow, that's what my brother is, or that's what my sister is. So as we mentioned on our inaugural episode, even though we are a theater group, an entertainment group, we don't like talking about theater. I actually got some pushback from Nathan Lane's people. They were very upset that I said he's not excited, that I'm not excited with the fact that when he comes back to Broadway. So possible feud brewing with me and Nathan Lane.
I mean, that's...
People love a little bit of drama.
But that's the truth. I mean,
it is what it is.
We don't get excited by theater. But his PR people reached out. They were unhappy with that comment. So hey, what can you say?
They told us we'll never sing in this town again.
And it's a good thing we don't do music. Good thing we don't do musicals.
We don't sing.
So I mean, possible thing to look out for in the future: a feud with me and Nathan Lane. But it's the truth. We like to talk about a lot of different things. We're working on getting an exorcist on the podcast. World famous comedian Lisa Lampanelli will be joining us in a future episode. And today,
very insightful on a lot of
she is very insightful.
Other subjects besides comedy.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's kind of like a pseudo therapist in her own right.
In her own right, yeah. She's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and speaking of therapists, today we are joined by one of the world-renowned, one of the world's leading narcissistic abuse therapists. We want to welcome Randi Fine to the show. Randi, welcome.
Welcome. I'm thrilled that she's here.
It's so good to be here, guys. Thank you for inviting me. But before we get into it, I got to ask you a question. Name come from?
Okay, so I will tell you. I spoke about the Iron Sheik. I think you know me, Randi. I mean, you've known me for about 5 years now, I think. Okay. When we had the summer of 2018 with Roller Pig. Yeah. That's a little inside joke with me and Randi. But I've known Randi 5 years, so she knows that I'm a big pro wrestling fan. And I think I may have told you that when I was a teenager, we had a backyard wrestling league. And we had like factions, like we set up like sort of like little cliques within the Backyard Wrestling League. And the faction that I belonged to was called the Magnificent Bastards. So when Joe and I were trying to come up with a name for the show, he said, we need like a tag team name. It's got to be, let's do like a pro wrestling name, like Legion of Doom or something like that. And I said, oh, I got it. I said, let's be called the Magnificent Bastards as an homage to my backyard wrestling days. So that's why we are the Magnificent Bastards.
And it's stuck.
There you go.
Yeah, it's stuck.
You go.
People
Okay.
like it.
Thanks for that.
So Randy, welcome to the show. This is going to be a very exciting and insightful episode, I think, because of all the things that I just mentioned. But right now, let's sort of ease our way into this. And what I want you to do is tell me how you got to the place that you're in today, becoming one of the leading experts in narcissistic abuse. What was your journey to get here, where you've got people all over the world now reaching out to you saying, help me?
No, it's not an easy journey for anybody. When I started my journey, there was no internet.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, or it was just at the infant stages. And I had always had issues with my mother, but I didn't know what they were. It was a whole lot of little things that were just uncomfortable. But around age 42, I became intolerant of being around her. I couldn't take it anymore, and I didn't know what was going on. I mean, this is a mother who professed to love me and her children and everything like that, and she just represented herself as a really good mother. My father always said she was. And so it was really, really confusing for me. Why didn't I want to be around her? So I went into therapy, and I was told that it was a boundary issue that I was having, that there were no boundaries in my family. And I'm like, what's a boundary? That's also giving away, it's a long time ago. But so she explained it to me, and it was absolutely true. And at the end of one of my therapy sessions, she just kind of threw it out there. I think your mother may be a narcissist. Done. Now, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm a coach, really. So I can say a lot of things, but therapists are very restricted in what they can say, and they can't diagnose a condition unless they have that person and they go through a full diagnosis.
Right.
So I'm like, narcissist? That doesn't describe, my mother was like quiet and demure and, So I kind of put that on the shelf. And when I was able to start doing some research, I began to read about this. And I'm like, bingo. That explains all the loose ends, all the craziness that I experienced. But there was nobody like me out there at the time doing this work. So it took me many years to pull myself out of that mindset. I was, up until the age of like 27, I was a total train wreck in my life. Train wreck. Everything, I made terrible choices. I was codependent. Life just wasn't working. And I just thought my life was going to be a series of problems for the rest of my life. But I finally decided that I was going to heal. And it took a long time because I did it myself, basically. And then once I got to the point where I really understood this and really felt resolved, then I started talking about it, and people were saying, you really need to help people because there's a lot of people out here that need you, and there's nobody to help them. So I'm like, well, okay. Okay. I'm not a therapist. I've always wanted to be one. I'm not a therapist, but okay. And somebody said, you really need to start counseling people. I said, who is going to come to me? I don't have a license. I don't have a degree in this. They're like, do it anyway. So I'm somebody that always follows road signs, like synchronicities. Like I hear something and I go, there's a reason somebody's saying that. So I sort of go in that direction. Sure. So I did it. And here I am today with a full practice and, well known for my work. And it was meant to be, but I had to live the childhood I lived in order to do this work, because you can't help anybody through it if you haven't experienced it yourself, because it's too crazy, convoluted, confusing.
Yeah.
So,
I always say it's like being abducted by aliens. It's like, well, you can tell me what it was like, but unless I actually am abducted by aliens also, I'm not going to truly understand that experience.
you're right. It is. It's very strange. And there are plenty of people out there doing this work who don't know what they're doing. I hate to say that, but it's very, very difficult. If you can't learn this, okay? There's no way to learn it. You have to have lived it.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of psychologists, I mean, when I reached out to you, I think I had said that, I saw 2 or 3 other people prior to you that just like they weren't quite understanding like what I was saying. And it's like, they're not really, specializing in narcissistic abuse. And even when you go through like the DSM, the criteria, what the 9, traits that define a narcissist, and you've got to meet 5 of the 9. I mean, there's hundreds of things that they do, and it's just it's not broad enough. And I also think that there's not enough attention paid to the person who is victimized by the narcissist. I mean, we've talked about, narcissistic abuse syndrome should be something that is in the DSM, because, I mean, I've been through it. I know people that have been through it. I mean, it is brutal. It's like having your body like put through a wood chipper. And unless you can talk to someone who is truly understanding what you're going through, it all roads lead to nowhere. And, people are like, well, maybe, X person was just having a bad day, or maybe they didn't mean it like that. And, they can't quite understand that this is a nefarious person that you're dealing with ill intentions. And so they're trying to make sense of this person's behavior in a more rational way. And that's very bad, because you then start to try to rationalize their behavior. And that's how you kind of end up going back to that person and not being able to break the cycle. But if you know that this person is literally a reptile that you're dealing with, it's a lot easier, I think, to truly understand what's going on and safely extract yourself from the relationship, whether it's with your mother or your boyfriend or father.
Right. I think what therapists don't understand is, if you're in a relationship of any sort, they say, well, it takes 2 people to create the issues. That's absolutely right. But when you're in this thing with a narcissist, I can't call it a relationship because it's not really. There's a victim and a perpetrator, and so there's nothing the victim can do to make it any better. And when you go to therapy and they're told, well, try to work this out, all it does is it shames you and it blames you, and it puts you into a mindset where you start beating yourself up. Why can't I do this? Why can't I should be able to do this. Everybody says, get over it. I can't get over it. And so you go in this whole cycle of negative thinking that takes you deeper into the problem.
Well, they're very skilled manipulators. I mean, I can, speak to someone from my past, and I'm sure the way that this played out is the way that so many situations play out. It's like you meet this person, she presents herself as sort of this damsel in distress, everyone's been so horrible to her. And I think narcissists typically target empathic people, people that, are kind, forgiving. So immediately you're drawn to this person's hardships, and you want to, make them feel like, well, the world isn't a horrible place. Not everyone is so terrible. And then very early on in the relationship, they seem to be like your soulmate. They present themselves as having all these qualities that you have, which, you then find out that that's just mirroring and part of their game. But at the time, if you don't know what you're dealing with, there's this like very intoxicating feeling that you have met your soulmate. and you become enmeshed with each other, very, very quickly. And they start to say things like, I've never met anybody like you before. Like, you're the best person that I've ever met. I feel this great connection. And I think as human beings, that's what we want. We want to feel that connection. We want to feel like we found our soulmate and that we're enmeshed and we're in love.
How long do you invest in this thing until before the bomb drops?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because when you go and you do, sort of an autopsy of the relationship when it's over, yeah, you realize that the red flags were there on the first date, but they're cloaked in a lot of very strong behaviors. But I'd say usually within the first couple of weeks, then they start to say or do things that are kind of strange, and you soon start to feel that the relationship is very one-sided, and it's like you're the one giving all of the emotion and the time, and you're cooking and they're just sitting there and not helping and cleaning, and they're not helping and cleaning up, just like little things that you're like, oh well, maybe that's just the way that she is.
Those instances, do like your friends say,
yeah, right away,
she's such a great girl?
No, usually they're like, usually they're like, yeah, what are you doing, like this in a relationship, X person should be doing this.
Right.
But then what happens is you reach the boiling point where you're tired of like carrying the whole situation, and you call them out on their behaviors, and then that's when they start like gaslighting the shit out of you to make you feel like you're selfish, and you just want everything done your way, and you're cheap, and you're keeping score and all this stuff. And then you start to feel like, oh well, wait a minute, no, I don't want to be represented that way, so then you try to make sense with these people. No, that's not what I mean. What I'm saying is I feel like a relationship should be 50-50, and it's like, well, your way of expressing love is different than my way, and they throw this tantrum like they're ready to leave. But the problem is they've hooked you in the beginning with that strong feeling of like, oh my God, I've met my soulmate. So now you're like a dog chasing its tail, and you're trying to do anything that you possibly can to get back to those incredible feelings. But once you start to call them out on their behavior, that's when the mask drops, and like the good times become less and less. And, it's like that. There's like an old saying of a guy smashing his head against the wall. And, somebody says to him, why do you keep smashing your head against the wall? And his response is, because it feels so good when I stop. And like, that's what a toxic relationship with a narcissist is like. It's like when the abuse stops, oh, it feels so good, we're in heaven. But that heavenly feeling becomes less and less as time goes on. And then, when you start to talk about some of your grievances in the relationship, that also gives them a perfect opportunity to create other opportunities for themselves and get more narcissistic supply. So then they start bringing other people into the relationship, and, kind of start floating it out there that they've got other options, and maybe they were hanging out with somebody, last night. And it's like, well, then you start to wonder, well, what, they didn't return my call. It's just a total mind fuck. And by the end, they leave you like totally like lifeless.
Burnt.
Yeah. I mean, I just touched a little bit on what that experience was like for me. It's like a steel cage match. I mean, for me, luckily my experiences were brief, but I mean, you get beat to a pulp within, 3 to 6 months. But then there's people that have been in relationships for, 20 plus years. But anyway, Randi, with what I just said, would you say that is an accurate representation of how a typical narcissistic relationship goes?
Spot on. Spot on. There was, as you were saying, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to add this, but then you added it. And then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to add this. You added it. So you really kind of covered it well. In my opinion, narcissists are evil, and they are the most dangerous human beings on earth. And the reason I say that is they're more dangerous than, so they're not, so psychopaths, sociopaths, they're dangerous, but that's very much like a narcissist. I don't think people understand that. So the reason I say they're dangerous is because what they do to you is imperceptible. You don't know what's happening to you. And they use many, many tactics, and they burrow into your psyche. They get into your subconscious. And the average person can't do that. And even if you begin to see something like that, you're going to doubt what you're seeing, because how could somebody do that? They can't, people can't.
Right. You're ascribing your morals and values onto another person. And it's like, well, they couldn't have meant it that way, because that's just so evil. So there's got to be another reason for it. And I'm just not understanding this person. So let's sit down and let's talk. And you find that the conversations go nowhere.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you throughout this whole thing. How much is the resistance from the victim when you first start talking to them to all this stuff? I can just see what you're saying to them, and they're like, no.
Yeah, they don't want to believe.
Yeah, I mean, is there a lot of resistance at first, even though they made that effort to come see you? For me, once you make the effort to go see someone to get help, that's step one. But then now it's cracking the code. And how hard is that? I mean, do they put up a wall with you at first? Like, one thing I loved about you is that you just tell it like it is. Like you just said it before, they're evil. You don't gloss over anything. So you're smacking them right in the face with the reality, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So continue.
So you're right. Yes. Depending on what they've learned before they come to me. I get a lot of different things. Some people will say, okay, Randi, they'll send me an email, say, all right, I've already learned all this. I want to start here. And I'm thinking to myself, if you've already learned it, you wouldn't be seeking me out, because you'd be feeling okay. So that's one thing. And when I go through the 9 traits in the DSM-5, I see people trying to argue, yeah, but they did this once, and that maybe is an exception. And then I say, okay, let's draw a pie, and you tell me what portion of that pie they've been good to you. You've had good times. People are like, sliver?
Right. 8 slices. How many slices are good?
Actually,
Right.
that's
A sliver.
A sliver. And so then it's like, yeah, then that puts it into proportion. I'm like, okay, so now you see how this is improportionate, okay? And you can't trust anything a narcissist says or does. They're lying and manipulating. Normal people can sit down and have a conversation. You can just talk about anything. You will never do that with a narcissist. Everything they say has some intention, and the intention is to solicit something from you.
Randi, I have a question, and to clarify for our audience, you mentioned like nine traits on the DSM. What would be those 9 traits to identify a narcissist?
Okay, so let me just pull it out.
Yeah, what would be the 9 traits, and then what would be an additional 25 that you might add to it?
Well, how many of them would you have to be
5.
qualified as a narcissist? Is it 5?
You have to have 5 out of 9. Most of the time, people aren't really aware of that these people have these traits, because they have made so many excuses in their head for the behavior that they overlook the obvious. Okay.
Right, because I feel like most people are all like on a gradient, right, where they might exhibit 1, 2, or 3 traits. Because I feel like narcissism is tied to ego, right?
Well, I suggest to everyone in the audience to have.
Yeah.
Take out your notepads. This is good information.
Yeah,
it's
psychology.
It's not as much tied to the ego as it is an alter ego. So what I mean by that is narcissistic personality disorder is a construct of a human mind. Mm-hmm. So it's not really the person that you meet when you meet a narcissist is not a human like you are. You're meeting a construct, and that the things that they do that appear normal are learned behaviors. Because think about it. So you develop this prior to the age of 18. Can you imagine from 18 to 30? If everything you ever did was study human nature, you'd be beyond an expert at it. They learn when it's right to hug. They learn when it's right to say, I love you. They learn everything. They watch. So they're able to mimic it very, very well. But nothing comes from a genuine place. Nothing.
Oh, it sounds psychopathic.
It very much is. And I mean, and also too, Randi, I think a lot of people have this idea that narcissists are very much full of themselves and they love themselves. And, it's actually the opposite. Like they hate themselves. And that's why they have to create this construct that you're talking about. And that's why their egos are so fragile because, they can't allow themselves to take a look at who they believe they really are, which is this awful, unlovable sort of monster. And so they've got to wear a mask and they've got to create all of these behaviors. And I think it was you who said to me, and this always kind of stuck with me. You had said to me, and this ties into the whole creating a construct and creating a mask. When we were talking back in 2018 about Roller Pig, you had said to me, go out in public today and just treat everybody like shit and see how long you can do that. You see how long you can do that for. You wouldn't be able to do it for very long because that's not your true nature. So like this construct of being a shitty person wouldn't last very long because your empathy, your values, your morals, whatever, would prevent you from doing that for any real length of time.
Right.
And then you were like, now flip it. She can't be this great, loving, caring person for very long because that's not her true nature. So that mask is going to keep slipping. And you keep seeing all of this darkness and this evilness because she's not her authentic self when she's with you. She's mimicking. And I remember you said to me, you think you're an actor. She's Meryl Streep. I remember you said that. So.
It's so people say, well, they cry. This
yeah.
Any absolutely. Any actor can cry.
Right.
So there's so much that's not understood, and we'll get to a lot of it. But narcissists do not have a personality. All right, this is personality disorder. There is no personality. It is formed based on what they need to solicit from each person, and they have one behavior behind closed doors with their loved ones or supposed loved ones. They have one at work. They have one when they go out into the public. They can look at you with total disdain and scorn and turn around and go, oh, hi, how have you been? And it's as believable as...
So true.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And people go, why are they so nice to everybody except me? Well, because they're soliciting a different kind of supply from these people. And they can't show these people who they are, because if they do, they'd go, get out of my face.
Right. And it's funny too when you say about they're like they're not a one size fits all. Like they mix and match, depending on who they're with. It's like you could be with somebody, and that's why they give off this very soulmate vibe, is because they're assessing you. They're trying to figure out what you're like, who you're like, the things you like, and then they mirror all that back to you.
Yeah,
it's
they
like,
cater to you.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
yeah.
You collect old baseball cards. Yeah, so do I. Oh my god, And then the next relationship, you find out, oh, she's a buffalo hunter. Like I didn't know that she, but she's dating a guy that's a buffalo hunter now. So it's like it's not a one size fits all.
If they're so good at putting on masks, how do you go about identifying them to know if you're talking to a narcissist? Because it sounds like you just walk into this trap. Right?
It is very much a trap. But before we get into that, Randy, do you have the 9 diagnosable items?
Okay, yeah, let me read them to you. Okay, so a diagnosis of NPD requires that the person has at least 5 of the following personality traits in no particular order: a grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, intelligence, brilliance, ideal love, or beauty, belief that he or she is unique and special, requires an excessive amount of adulation and attention. And attention, by the way, doesn't have to be positive. You can be cussing them out. You can be calling them every name under the sun. You can be calling them the lowest person on earth, or you could be saying, you're so beautiful, or you're so handsome. To a narcissist, it's exactly the same. Exactly the same. It doesn't matter. Okay, that was 4. 5, feels entitled. 6 is interpersonally exploitive. Okay, they take advantage of people. 7, lack empathy. I mean, they definitely lack empathy. 8, envious of others or believe that others are envious of them. And 9, behaves arrogantly, haughtily, patronizingly, or rudely to those they feel are beneath them. And really, everybody is beneath them in their mind.
Right.
So you have to have 5. And I didn't go into, it would take too much to read the explanations of this, but most people have pretty close to 9. And it would be 9 if the people that I was trying to assess this with were even clued in to what they were looking at. It would be 9.
Yeah, I feel like when you're sitting there talking to somebody, especially somebody close to you, you're so there's like emotions invested in that conversation, in that relationship, that you're not thinking logically when you're dealing with
because you want the relationship to be good.
Yeah. So it just makes it hard to like, pin down any particular, like, verbalize or articulate this behavior that you're practicing is categorized such as, right? And even if you were to explain that to them, they wouldn't accept it. Right. There's that denial. There's that gaslighting. There's that scapegoating.
Well, you don't want to be the loser without a girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's a great point. Is because like I feel like our generation, and my generation in particular, like there's this fear of being alone, right? Where in the era of like Tinder, swipe dating, you know what I mean? Fast pass, swipe left, right. Who's who? People can't really stomach the idea of being the single person when they see all these other happy couples on Instagram, living their best life and traveling around. So they often will just settle for somebody, even if they are taking advantage of them, to just.
But I would also counter that by saying that I think a lot of people that are posting all these happy pictures on Instagram aren't necessarily happy.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's this
miserable fucks.
It's this weird, like, paradigm shift of people that are showing their happiness and not actually being happy, influencing other people who are not happy to be with somebody who makes them even unhappier. And it's this feedback.
Well, it's interesting. You bring up the social media, and this is what I wanted to ask you, Randy. Do you feel in today's society, okay, to me, this all started way back with Paris Hilton and moved its way on up, where we are breeding narcissists, where you have these people that just throw themselves out there, tell you that whatever they know is it. If you disagree with them, you're an asshole. We're going to cancel you.
Yeah.
And they're so fucking arrogant, especially what we would deem today the social warriors, these people that go around beating up on people, covering their faces, saying what they're saying is right, doing a lot of harm. To me, that's a narcissist in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like society, between its shows, its media, your commercials, everything that's going on, even in school, the stuff that you were saying before about, I'm so wonderful. They're telling that to the kids these days. You need to be wonderful. You are this, you are that, you are this, instead of letting them compete, instead of letting them.
Yeah, it's value signaling.
Exactly.
It's like
it's like, you can see that we are breeding narcissists.
Yeah, during Pride Month, like all the BMW changing their logo to include a rainbow inside the blue in their triangles versus their Saudi Arabia brand where they just pretend it doesn't exist. It's like value signaling.
162 Pride flags. I mean, 2 would have been enough, I think. How to make the point, not 162. But that's neither here or there.
Right.
I mean, I just think what's going on now in society and how we're so accepting of, again, these social warriors, these people that are just throwing shit down, and people that beat up on people and people that cause harm. Criminals, I think, are the worst narcissists because if you are able to hurt someone that way, you are a fucking narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
comment, Randy, comment.
You made really good points. So let me just say the difference between somebody who is narcissistic and somebody who has a narcissistic personality disorder. So narcissistic personality disorder forms from abuse in the childhood home. And it is not every child in that environment is going to take on the personality disorder. It's the temperament that makes them loathe themselves to the point where they want to forever deny the truth. But so this forms before the age of 18. And generally, there is a genetic predisposition. So this thing goes back generations. And the difference is, these people, the way that you can tell somebody who has personality disorder from somebody who doesn't is if you criticize them, even the most gentle way, they flip out on you. They rage. They act out. Somebody who is just narcissistic, full of themselves, they have the ability to to think about this. They can make a choice of how they're going to react and how they're going to take it. They can make that choice. The narcissist cannot make that choice.
Right.
And so that...
Now, Randy, I think it...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, kind of piggybacking off of Joe's question and something that we've talked about in the past is, excuse me, I think, what do they say? 1% of the population is, has narcissistic personality disorder. First of all, that's such a misnomer because narcissists don't believe there's anything wrong with them, so they're not going to therapy to get diagnosed.
No, they're going to check that box off.
Yeah, they're not getting diagnosed. And number two, I remember you've said to me before, and please comment on this. It's an epidemic, right?
I believe that.
It is an epidemic. So yeah, Mayo Clinic says 1% of the population has this disorder. So, that's ridiculous. And what you said is true, Matt. Narcissists can't take in anything negative. So they never know anything's wrong with them. It's like Teflon. It slides right off of them and back onto you.
It's always you, yeah.
It's always you. They can't take it. It's like the blind can't see. The narcissist cannot take negativity. They will not ingest it. They will not download it. They can't.
Is there an uptick in the number of narcissists compared to historically or previously? I'm not sure it was, measured or tracked and to what detail.
I don't think it's been measured the way it should have been.
That's a really hard one. There's no good hard data on this because you can't really measure the amount of narcissists. All I know is that every single person I talk to has experienced this in some way in their life, and often multiple ways. So
yeah,
I was on a cruise ship getting a massage. The woman says, "What do you do?" "Oh, I got to tell you about my boyfriend, narcissistic." I go to a new doctor. He goes, "Oh, do I have a whole bunch of patients to send to you?" It's like everywhere I go, people are experiencing this, but they don't know how bad this really is. And it's really bad. Really bad.
Yeah. And you're right with the, they can't, and as I've learned so much about narcissism, because you become a detective in your relationship once you start to, piece things together and you start to realize what's actually going on, then you're almost like provoked by some force greater than you to learn all about it, and it's like you can't stop doing research. And with all the things that I've, learned about it now, when I encounter someone that's dealing with a situation like this, I basically say to them, pretend that, geez, I must be on my,
it's
all narcissistic nerve.
It's been so smoggy outside,
bagel I had.
The Canadian wildfire, all that smoke that's been blowing down to the New York area.
Could be the bagel I had too. What I say to them is, imagine you want to have a game of catch with the narcissist, but they don't have any arms. So they're literally incapable of catching the ball and throwing it back to you. Like I try to get them to understand it on that sort of level. It's like they cannot catch the ball. They don't have any arms. They're not equipped with limbs to play catch with you. And it's like, that's what a narcissist is. They do not possess the human qualities that you need to have a successful reciprocal caring relationship. And it's like, I think that's very hard. And it was certainly very hard for me to accept that and be like, no, that can't be it. This person can't be that much of an alligator that they're not capable,
right?
But the scary thing is like, that's the truth. Is it broken down?
It's absolutely the truth. But narcissists do this thing called future faking. So even in the beginning, when you're meeting them, they build a future with you that is completely an illusion, but you buy into the whole thing. And so when things change, a couple things happen. One is that you can't let go because we were going to do this. We were going to move to Colorado. We were going to build this big house. We were going to do this. We were going to have money. and they're holding on to a dream that they just don't want to let go. The other thing is because the person that they meet, the person that love bombs them initially in order to capture them as hostages, emotional hostages, that person never existed, but it's the person you fell in love with. And it's the person that you were so incredibly high on, you couldn't think about anything rationally. So once things change, you logically are going, did I do something? Or maybe they're going through something. And you can go through years trying to come up with things. Maybe if I do this, they'll come back to me. Maybe if I do that, they'll come back to me. When in fact, that person never existed, nor did the future. And
yeah, maybe if you show up at their doorstep with Wonder Woman cupcakes, they'll come back.
Love it.
Where you run her over. One thing that I want to ask you, for the narcissist, doing all this behavior, really, I love when you said, they capture you. What do they get out of it? What's their drug, their adrenaline from all of this?
Okay.
Like, what keeps them going? What makes them get eviler and eviler as time goes by?
Yeah, is it nature or nurture?
Yeah,
it's neither of that. So when they take on this false self, this false construct, okay, they lose the ability to do anything human. They can't love, they can't empathize, but they also cannot generate anything inside, any positive feelings inside. So everything from that point on has to come externally. So they have to get things from people. What they're getting is called narcissistic supply: adulation, admiration, and attention. And it's solicited in many different ways. But the people that are closest to you, it's solicited through abuse. Because what do you do when somebody accuses you of something false? You go, I didn't do that. How could you say that? Why would I do that? I promise you. And they're going, no, no, I promise you. I take a lie detector test. That is the attention they're seeking. And you have fed them.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you give away through these conversations, whatever, the more they have on you. And so
I think, go ahead, keep going. No, keep going. Go ahead.
So as time goes on, they know where every one of your hot buttons is because you've reacted and you've told them and you've said to them, please don't do that anymore. When you say to a narcissist, please don't do that anymore, you might as well say, do it constantly. Because
right.
Here's the salt. Show me the wound.
You found the button. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Never say don't do this. That's a threat that they, go ahead.
Right. And it's interesting too, where you touched upon, this person that you fell in love with and that you were so high on. It's unlike any other high that you'll experience from, say, dating a quote unquote normal person, Of course, when you're dating a quote unquote normal person, there's legitimate caring and trust there and a relationship that can be built, over time. But with the narcissist, it's such a dopamine hit of like, whoa, this is like, I mean, I've never done heroin, but I would imagine it would be something like that. In fact, I've read that getting out of a narcissistic abusive relationship is harder than getting off of heroin. And I mean, I've been down that road and we've been down that road together. But the thing that you touched on is, that self-reflection that the abuser does, because it's like, well, they were so wonderful and they were so perfect and now they've changed. And they're telling me that the reason that they've changed is my behaviors and what I'm doing. So I've obviously got to change what I'm doing to get that person back. But again, it's like I said before, it's like the dog chasing its tail. It's like that person never existed. You'll never get that person back, but they'll sit and just watch you try to put on this show to try to get them back. And again, it's like those dopamine hits become less and less, and the abuse becomes more and more. And it's like the guy hitting his head against the wall. It's like, well, why do you even go through this? It's because when it stops, it's so great. I get that person back that I was so in love with.
Right. You're absolutely right, Matt. So narcissists create a brain chemical addiction to them. And they have different ways of doing that. One of the major ways that they do it is generally when you meet these people, you are so hot for this person, you are so into this person, it's like crazy how much chemistry is there. And so they put you in situations where you end up sleeping with them very quickly. This is done on purpose. It's done because they know that when you have sex, you're going to release these hormones, the bonding hormones, the dopamine, all of those things gets released. So they bond you to them deliberately through this process. They have many different ways of doing it, but this is one way where they really get you addicted. And when you get out of these relationships, you are addicted. People say to me, he almost killed me. She almost killed me. I finally got away. I escaped with my life. But Randi, if they knocked on the door right now, I'd open it and embrace them and take them right back. Mm-hmm. That's how confusing it is because you are addicted. It's like a drug.
They build dependency.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called a trauma bond, right? That you established with this person.
Yep. You cannot live without this person.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they also they test you too, and they do things early on, see how you're going to react to know, okay, is this someone that I can really manipulate and destroy, or should I keep looking? And I remember with we've met in the past over 2 specific situations, and I remember one of the situations, not roller pig, but the other one. I remember we were laying in bed. You talk about getting ensnared, like they use sex to control. And I remember we were laying in bed, and it was after we had sex for one of the first few times in the relationship. And we were sitting there, and everything felt normal and good. And then she said, "You're so much nicer than a lot of the other guys that I've been having sex with lately." And that was such an ambiguous way, and they're very ambiguous. They say things that you're like, oh, well, what does she mean by lately? You know what I mean? Like, is she sleeping with other people now? Was it within the past year? And it's like they already plant the seed in your head. There's other people out there. There might be other guys they're seeing. And I feel like it's meant to control you. It's like a black widow. Like, she ensnares you in the bedroom and then immediately goes and takes this subtle jab that you can't quite call her out on because she's saying it in a way that is almost complimentary to you. But it's but also there's this confusing component to it. Why would she say that?
She's a praying mantis. That's why.
It's interesting.
That's exactly right.
She's a praying.
Yeah, because post-nut clarity, you think that's the time to kind of reflect on these things. It seems like awful timing, but it works surprisingly.
It works. They get you when you're super, super vulnerable.
Right.
I wanted to read. I'll tell you who narcissists are initially attracted to. Those who are excessively nice, pleasant, agreeable. People who easily forgive or overlook off-putting, offensive, and undesirable behavior. They will test you in the beginning. They may be love bombing you, and then they'll say, I really have to confess, I feel really bad. I cheated in my last relationship, and I feel really bad about it. And then the nice person goes, oh, no, don't worry about that. It'll be different with us. Or they'll say, sometimes narcissists will say, I don't even know what love is. And you go, I'm going to show you what love is.
Right.
You are going to be so loved. You're going to know what love is.
Yeah.
Wrong.
The problem is damage.
Wrong answer.
After that.
So then the second one, people who are vulnerable and naive, young and innocent, unfamiliar with customs, or suffering from trauma or loss. So I had a woman who had been married for 35 years to the most wonderful man. He died. Now she's out in this crazy world with all these predators around, and she gets snatched right up because she's so vulnerable. She has no radar, no filter, no nothing.
Yeah.
Highly empathetic and understanding, willing to rescue someone who represents themselves as suffering, wounded, betrayed, or victimized. The Florence Nightingale complex, have weak or undefined boundaries. You're easily manipulated, or you're swayed in conversation. You're unable to say no. You lack self-esteem. You have undefined values and wants and needs. And then the last one, they also go after people who are successful, accomplished, attractive, and popular, because they are preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, talent, and they want to be with you by association. They believe they are that. So there's a lot of different things they look for. But the main one really is the lack of boundaries and the falling for, telling them, oh no, I'm going to love you. I'll take care of you. I'm sorry you were hurt,
Right. Like when you said before that the narcissist may say to you, I feel guilty. I cheated in my last relationship. A lot of times that will also accompany, but he or she was so abusive to me. They were rotten. They make themselves out to be the victim. Right. And then you, as the empathic, caring person, are like you said, well, I'm going to show you this time's going to be different, because you want to believe a person at face value. And unfortunately, you can't anymore. But it's like when you believe that someone says that they were, greatly damaged or cheated on or abused in a previous relationship, unfortunately, with a narcissist, they're basically telling you that that's what they did to that person, They may say my wife or husband did all these horrible things to me, but in more likelihood,
but you should hear what I did to them.
Yeah, it's more likely. It's like,
well, the rule of thumb, there's a couple of rules of thumb, but the rule of thumb is with a narcissist, accusations are confessions.
Yeah,
what they accuse you of, they're confessing themselves.
Right. Let's get into some terminology and then I know Joe's got like a.
Well, I just got one quick question that just goes back to what you were saying, and then we can get into all this other stuff. When it comes to sex, okay, do you find that in your experience that the narcissist has weird sexual tastes and behaviors and is willing to cross those sexual boundaries just to get what they want, or are they just pretty much normal on the sexual scale?
No, it varies. Initially, they're very, they're very loving in this way, just when they're sucking you in. But no, they're very perverted and deviant in their minds. And
that's what I thought.
They do things like, have sex with a woman while she's sleeping, drug her. They all have perverse interests when it comes to sex. And a lot of narcissistic men also dip into homosexuality. A lot of them have addiction to porn. They're pretty screwed up. Yeah. And
they use sex as a tool.
Yeah. And once you've committed to them, the sex dies. They don't want you anymore.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Exactly. So some words of terminology for our uneducated viewers and listeners
Get
at
those
home.
pads out again.
Get those pads out. There's going to be a quiz next week. So I'm just going to throw some random stuff out here that, of course, I know. I'm like Alex Trebek. I know the answers, but this is for everyone else. Tell everyone what the term flying monkeys means.
Oh, okay. So a flying monkey in The Wizard of Oz, the witch would send these no-brain things out the window to do her bidding. Go get Dorothy. Kill Dorothy. Do this, do that. And they were mindless, and they just did it. Flying monkeys are people that narcissists recruit through playing victim, playing wounded. These people feel so bad for them about what you did to them that they then go after you. They support the narcissist. They go after you with a vengeance to try to destroy you because they think you have hurt this poor, wounded little character. And flying monkeys, most of the time, they're really sensitive people, and they fall for this thing.
Yeah, and they're also under the witch. I mean, if you notice at the end of The Wizard of Oz, the flying monkeys were actually kind of relieved that the witch died. They were under her under her spell.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah, I mean, these people very rarely will wake up. Every once in a while, they'll recruit somebody who they know is a bully, who they can get to really, go after their ex.
This one is my favorite, and I think it speaks to the level of brainwashing that you are under when you're with a narcissist. The boiling frog analogy.
Love that.
Right. So the boiling frog analogy is that if a frog's in a glass and you gradually warm up the water, they're not going to jump out. But
they're not going to know that they're boiling.
They don't.
I mean, if you throw them into a boiling pot, they're going to jump right out.
They're going to jump out. Right.
Slowly turn up the heat. They get conditioned to the temperature so that the time that they're boiling, it's like they don't realize it. And that's how it is with a narcissist, because if on date one, they showed you what an evil fucking scumbag that they are, you would get out of it. Absolutely. But they don't do that. They set the trap, and then they slowly turn up the heat. And I've noticed in my experiences, the first real what the fuck moment comes within that first month, within like the 3 to 6 week window. But by that point, you're already ensnared. But that's the first dial of being, kind of turned up. Mm-hmm. And then it's when you start to call them out on their behaviors and they throw it all back on you and make you out to be the one that's in the wrong. And you're paddling after them like the dog in a pool. Like, no, come back. We'll fix this. Like that's another level. And then finally, by the end, when you're just so emotionally destroyed, I mean, that's when you're boiling and you feel like you have thrown all of your values and morals out the window, and your sense of self has just been totally ruined. It's like, where's my self-respect? How did I get to this place? It's so manipulative and calculated. It's like diabolical. And you don't realize that you're boiling until you're actually boiling, and it's too late.
Destroyed.
Melting right
dead.
off of you.
Practically dead.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's a question I have for you. Do narcissists know what they are doing is evil, diabolical, nefarious? Do they use these tactics to manipulate you on a conscious level, or do they really believe that like you're the one that's the problem?
So they manipulate you on a conscious level, but they can do it out of their entitlement. So they feel entitled to do whatever they want to do in this world. Nobody can tell them, not the law, not the judge, not the police. Nobody can tell a narcissist no, because they believe they're above it all and they're entitled. And so what they have to do in order to feed themselves, basically, is they have to objectify and dehumanize every person in their life. So by that, I mean, when you're with a narcissist, they do not know who you are. They know nothing about you. They don't know anything beyond your surface. You're nothing but a pawn on a chessboard or a puppet on a string. They believe they can move you around and do whatever they want to do to get what they need. And they feel entitled and they feel no guilt because you're not a person. You're a thing.
It's like keeping a pet,
Yeah.
like a goldfish.
Worse than that. I mean, we treat our pets a lot better than that.
That's fair
Yeah,
enough,
really. Another term, and I don't know if you're familiar with the term specifically. I mean, I know that you know what it means, but this is something very calculated that I feel that they do, and again, something that I've experienced. It's that harm and rescue kind of thing, where they do something so shitty that makes you want to leave the relationship, but then it's like, then they make this grand gesture to keep you. It's like they decide to cook your favorite meal, and they went out and they bought all the ingredients, and they set up this nice romantic evening together on the heels of just doing something so shitty.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, well, maybe this person actually can self-reflect. Maybe this person actually does realize that what they did was wrong and they're making up for it. And, they keep doing that. And that's how you just get so destabilized and off balance in the relationship. And I myself have found that tactic to be one of the more brutal techniques that they do, because it's like they're peppering in very sweet, kind behaviors with these really destructive acts, and you start to notice that the sweet behaviors come very shortly after the destructive acts.
Right. So there's a term for this. It's called intermittent reinforcement.
Right.
Okay.
I thought it was Kathy Bates in Misery.
Now Joe's got a series of note cards here. I have no idea what's written on them, but he's been telling me
Fire away, Joe.
And we haven't
I love
touched on
this. This is great. I do feel like
but
I'm
it's
on
really
Jeopardy.
interesting. One thing I wanted to talk about, we all remember, I think the most famous narcissist in the movies, Patrick Bateman.
Psychopathic.
American Psycho.
American Psycho. And Kathy Bates in Misery. Do you know anything about Liberace?
Not a lot. I know he was a great piano player. I know he was very flamboyant. Beyond that, no.
It's really interesting because after speaking to you and knowing about all this stuff, what a narcissist he was.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. First of all, I mean, he had this crazy sex life that was just out of control. He ends up bringing in guys that he has them play for them first, uses them, then gets rid of them. He finds the one that was the chauffeur that ended up, what was the guy's name, Steven? What? Yeah. Where he forces the guy to get plastic surgery so he looks like him. And this guy went through all this crazy plastic surgery to look like Liberace. And at first he's this really good looking guy, and he just massacred his face.
Oh my God. And Liberace made him do it?
Liberace made him do it. Sets him up with the doctor, just takes care of everything. And he does it, and he was doing it in like such a sweet way. It's like, oh, Skyline, I think you'll look really great. You know? Kept feeding him diet pills. Back then they were amphetamines, and fucked him up that way. Ends up giving him AIDS. I mean, just tore this guy apart.
Sounds like a narcissist to me.
I think the plastic surgery thing was like the ultimate.
Oh my God. Yeah.
No, that's brutal. Now, Randy, there are several different categories there's not just one type of narcissist, right? There's several types of narcissists. So can you talk a little bit, because I think, again, when people think of a narcissist, they commonly think of, this person that is just so overly in love with themselves and looks in the mirror all day. And it's like, it's not really what narcissism is. And in fact, it can present itself in an opposite way, like I've experienced. Talk about some of the different kinds of narcissists that are out there, and maybe give some examples, for the listeners and the viewers.
Okay, so the most common is the overt versus the covert. So the overt narcissist is somebody it's just so obvious what they're doing, that they're completely obsessed with themselves. They don't care about anybody. They'll step on anybody. Donald Trump is a perfect example of an overt narcissist, okay? Which I don't mind, because they show you who they are, all right? It's not as dangerous as the covert narcissist, because the covert narcissist pretends that they're charitable, they're loving, they're warm, they're giving, and then they're really sneaking this programming into you. And you don't know it because you're looking at this person. Like, one of the things people say to me when they're with a covert narcissist, but he's so charitable. But he's in all these organizations. Why would he do that if he were a narcissist? Right. Duh. Supply, you get recognized.
Right. It's like one of the girls that we talked about with in my situation. She was very involved in the church.
This is common.
She looks very, what a great girl. She's a woman of God.
Yeah, religious organizations seem like the perfect place to sort their empathic people who care a lot and who look at somebody and say, I can fix that, and genuinely mean it in a positive way of like helping this person find some sort of enlightenment and peace. And then they themselves end up getting manipulated and damaged, as a result, because...
And the clergy always support the narcissist because they don't know what they're looking at. And they always say, oh, you should really work on this relationship. It's not as bad, because they don't see what you see. They see this little church lady, and
Right.
and they're like, how could she can't be doing it. It's your perception, your perception. And I get a lot of people who are really screwed up from these church situations. And another thing about this is a lot of people say to me, well, I can't leave because I'm a Christian or I'm a Catholic and I made vows and before God and I promise forever. If you're married to somebody, if you have a partner, if you have a relationship and you make these vows, that's one thing. This is not a relationship. It's a perpetrator-victim situation. And I cannot believe that any God or whatever is going to tell you to stay with an abuser. It's not the same.
Randi, do you feel, as you know, the percentage of people getting married is getting less and less? Do you feel that the rise in narcissism kind of corresponds to that people are now more afraid to get into a relationship, get into marriage, because basically a narcissist, I feel, can't really truly be devoted and married to that person because they got to give themselves up, and it's a two-way situation. It's totally against what narcissism is all about. But we're seeing this decline in family. We're seeing this decline in marriage. Do you think that that's part of it?
I think it's actually the opposite, because narcissists want to get into marriage and family because there is their emotional hostages that they build into their life. Like they want to have children because children are a way to grow their own narcissistic supply. They just birth children that are going to adore them because they're the parent. So I just think there's a lot of independence. I mean, I know my daughter married later and, my son's been with a woman for a long time and I don't know how close to marriage they are. I just think people are just they have more going on in their lives, but I don't think it's narcissism per se.
Okay, cool.
How would you define, you hear this term, a malignant narcissist? Like, what's the difference between your, everyday narcissist and a malignant narcissist?
Okay, so people throw that word malignant because when people describe their narcissist, the word narcissist doesn't feel enough to describe the horrific treatment they're experiencing. So they tend to throw that word malignant on top of it. I'm with a malignant narcissist. Well, no, you're not, because you'd be dead. Malignant narcissists they're closer to the psychopath, sociopath. They will murder. They will physically do things to destroy the other person. O.J. Simpson is the perfect example of a malignant narcissist. He did it. So the difference between that and like a psychopath or a sociopath is a malignant narcissist does it for the same reasons narcissists do what they do. They want the attention. They want the adulation. So they are doing this for what they're going to get from it. A psychopath or a sociopath, while they will do the same kind of thing, they don't care about any of that. That's the only distinction really between the antisocials and the and people with NPD. But the malignant is more closer to the psychopath.
Would you categorize somebody who would engage in something like a school shooting, who writes a manifesto and goes out there to be on national television and reap that attention from the court cases and everything? Would that be an example of a malignant narcissist?
No, that would be the example of a child of a narcissist. That would be the example of a child who got no attention and they're trying to seek it in the worst possible way and they don't care if they die doing it. I think that family narcissism is at the root of a lot of these school shootings. These kids are messed up and they're showing what they're doing and the parents they don't care. They don't care and they do nothing about it. And that's what I think is going on.
Well, yeah, so the parents are the narcissists who are so self-involved and don't give the child the kind of nourishment, emotionally, physically, mentally that they need
right
to keep them from committing heinous acts.
What's the
Absolutely.
probability of a narcissist parent, and now that then they abuse one of the children, and that child grows up and does the same to their children?
Right. So there's, in addition to the nurture part of, this development. So it's kind of a combination of nature nurture, but generally this goes back generations. And so it's very common for a narcissist to produce a narcissist through their behavior, but it's not a guarantee because not every child is going to develop the personality disorder. So children in these horrible situations, they would become psychotic if they actually had to face what they were dealing with. So the subconscious steps in and it gives them tools for getting through it. And some of the things that they'll do is dissociation, where they just leave. Whenever something's wrong, they don't even feel it, they just leave. Some of them try to be as invisible as possible so that they won't make any waves. Codependency is a big one. Pleasing is a huge one because, this is what I did, because if you please the abuser, you can buy yourself some amount of emotional safety.
Right.
Just keep pleasing. The problem with pleasing a narcissist, and this really goes on into adult relationships, is you can't. And the reason you can't is because the goalpost is ever moving. So just when you figure out what they want and you do it, not good enough, goalpost moves. You go that way, you try to figure that out, goalpost moves. So you can never do it right.
What about a sexual abuser? Do they fall into any type of narcissistic category where they're abusing someone, but it's like, and the person that they're abusing is kind of like, okay, don't worry about it, it's fine, it's just between us, blah blah blah, that type of, or it's a minor.
Yes. Sexual predators are very narcissistic. Yes. So you can see, if you think back to what I said about objectification, dehumanization,
Right.
and entitlement, that would be, a sexual predator would have all of those things. They're entitled, they dehumanize, and they objectify. So they're not doing this to a person. They're doing it to a thing, and they're entitled.
Yeah. What really, scares me about, potentially falling into these narcissistic relationships and finding yourself dealing with one is that generally they target people that are virtuous and, are empathic. And at the tail end of that relationship, whether they're able to escape it or perhaps they're trapped in it, they're damaged. They lose their ability to trust. They lose their belief in love or what love is. How do you go about either protecting yourself from that kind of damage or recovering from being with a narcissist? How do you heal from something like that?
So
Talk a little bit about how, when you're with your clients, talk a little bit about that in your practice.
Yeah, I know. We haven't touched on.
We haven't even touched on that.
Yeah,
He can actually heal.
All the damage that
a person cannot do this themselves because, think about it this way. So you hear about somebody coming out of a cult. They got to go through deprogramming, or they will still have the mindset of that cult. You don't walk away and it just goes. Brainwashing stays within you. So when I work with people, I am teaching them a different mindset that is helping them to deprogram and reprogram. So it's sort of like this neuroplasticity where you're, if you've driven down a road for 30 years and it's a country road and it's dirt, it's grooved in so deep, and you put your car in there and you don't have to steer. It just goes, I need to get them out of that and have them make new roads, new dirt roads. And I have to get them to think a different way. And it requires an immense amount of patience because I will say the same thing over and over and over till they get it, because I know they're not going to get it the first time. there's something called cognitive dissonance that happens when you're with a narcissist. Cognitive dissonance is when two thoughts collide, when there's two opposite thoughts going on in your head you can't do that. You can't do two opposite thoughts. So you tend to go to the one that feels more natural. And the one that feels more natural is going to be the one that you're used to, the abuse. That's where you go. So I got to get people out of the mindset of what they're used to and get them into a new mindset.
Now, in your practice, I mean, I think it's, and I think this is a misnomer myself, but I think it's kind of widely accepted that more men are narcissists than women, but I don't think that that's necessarily true, but maybe you could comment on that from your experience in counseling.
It's absolutely not true. Most of the time, I have more male clients than I have female clients. And my male clients are usually more devoted and ready, and they want to work through it till the end. I guess that's just, the way the male is. But I got to get past the ego first, because the ego is a major blocker. Women, I have plenty of women, some of them fall away very quickly. Some of them really want to do the work, but as far as there being more men, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I think, something that is probably difficult, a lot of times you would go to a therapist or a coach to try to save the relationship. But when they come to you, it's like they're trying to extract themselves from the relationship. And that is such a different dynamic when you go in there with someone and it's like, hey, how can we figure this out? How can we make this work? It's almost like you're this person on the side that they're communicating with. Like, it's like they really are a victim. It's like you're like the negotiator almost. And it's like, they're in a hostage situation, and rather than, the perpetrator negotiating with you, it's the victim.
Right.
But I mean, I remember feeling that way with you. It's like, okay, I'm speaking to this woman about this relationship that I know on a intellectual level is so horrible, but on an emotional level, they're not syncing up. And I'm hearing myself talk about all these, maltreatments, but I'm still with this person. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do I get myself out of that relation? How do I extract myself? And I remember that being like the hardest thing is, you're in a relationship with someone and you're going to a coach to try to find a way to get out of it while you're still in it, because it's so bad, but you're brainwashed and you're conditioned. Like, it's really very difficult.
Very difficult. Very difficult. So you said that really, really well. What you know intellectually is not what you feel emotionally. And you can't bring the two together on your own. That's the problem. You just can't bring them together. And so you can read everything, you can learn everything. It's not going to make you feel any better, because you need to be with somebody who's going to help deprogram this, get your mind get you into a different mindset. And like I said, it takes a lot of repetitive conversations till the person finally gets it.
Yeah, you got to have the patience of a judge. I mean, I remember even working with you, I'm like, this woman must hate me now. It's like 6 weeks that we've been meeting, twice a week, and I haven't really made genuine progress. I mean, when is she just gonna off me and not sign into the Zoom meeting? You know what I mean?
I'm very patient. The only time I'm not patient is when somebody says that they hear me, they want to do it, and then they do something completely different and they go against everything I say.
Would you say, though, that if they did something like that, it's like it's out of their control? Like, it's literally like out of their control, because I remember myself feeling like, yeah, no, you're right. I'm ending it today. And then it's like 3 months later, I'm still with this person. It's like there's something that's like preventing you from doing it. And I think it goes back to all the things we've been saying, this conditioning, this brainwashing, your emotions and your intellect not being able to sync up. It's like, yeah, in the moment, it's like, yes, you're 100% right. I'm going to send that text right now and end it. And then it's like, when it comes to actually doing it, you're like, I can't do it. I can't be without this person.
Right. And that's a common thing, and that I don't mind. So I tell people after they meet with me, I say, you get this, you're really clear on this. I said, in 3 days, you're going to start thinking, Randi Fine doesn't know shit. She doesn't know what she's talking about, and I'm not listening to her. I said, and then by 1 week later, everything I said to you is going to be gone. So I'm aware that this is going to happen. And because of the cognitive dissonance, the addiction, all of that. So I have to say it over and over again. When I say defying me, it's like when somebody asks me specifically, how do I logistically do this? And I say, okay, so you don't want to leave a note, or you don't want to write a letter. You want to leave quietly. You don't have a confrontation, these kind of things where I'm saying, don't. I'm telling you, you don't need to know why, just don't. And then they do all of those things. And then I'm like, okay, so what is the point here? Because, you're not taking my advice. I don't mind if you don't get it. I just really mind if somebody is just goes so rogue that they think they know better, because they don't. They don't.
Now, if somebody discovers, while they're working with you, that yes, this person that I'm seeing or married to or in some sort of familial relationship with is, uncontrovertibly a narcissist, would you advise that person to tell the narcissist, I know what you are, I know what you're up to? Why or why not?
Absolutely not. Okay, so if we go back to what I said earlier, that the narcissist cannot feel anything negative. It doesn't get in, okay? And they have to repel it off, okay? So when you tell a narcissist something's wrong with them, in their mind, there's nothing wrong with them. Everything's wrong with you. So they lash out at you. So you never tell a narcissist, because it's a negative connotation. You're saying you're not perfect. And if you say to a narcissist, you're not perfect, they rage. Doesn't matter how you say it. But I think I told you guys this story, but I had a woman who came and she was so desperate, and I said, you've got to get my book. I want you to read my book before our session next time. I want you to read it because you need to get educated. Next time she comes, she goes, so I got your book, and me and my husband sat down and read it together. And I told him, you're a narcissist. You need to learn about this so you can get better. And I went, you did what? This person did not work with me for very long because she was, I don't know. She didn't have any level of common sense.
That's that accusation that you were referring to at the beginning of this conversation of the accusation is a confession. Right? In pointing the finger, they themselves are confessing that, hey, somebody else a narcissist.
Call the victim a narcissist.
Right.
And then you'll start to think, oh, maybe I am the narcissist.
That's the first question. One of the first questions I get with everybody that comes to me is, Randi, I'm so afraid I'm a narcissist because I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm doing this. And I say, no, this is not an action on your part. It's not deliberate. It's a reaction that's causing you to behave this way. The narcissist is doing it because this is what they do. The victim is all reaction. And so a lot of those things can look narcissistic, but they're not.
Now you would call that projecting, right? The narcissist would be projecting all of its negative qualities onto you.
Yep.
In that instance. You mentioned a book. I know you've written several books. Why don't you talk about that and talk about where people can get it? Because sure. I've got a copy. Joe has a copy.
I know where I can get it because I ordered it on Amazon 2 days ago.
Talk about the book.
So my book, it is titled perfectly, Close Encounters of the Worst Kind. Because there is no worse close encounter that you can have. This is the second edition. The first edition, I think I might have taken it off. But you want the red and black one. It's a different color.
Yeah, the other one's blue.
The other was blue, right. And then this one, this is the workbook that goes along with it. And it's very easy to go through. And it's going to help you when you're not with me to work on that cognitive dissonance, to be able to start thinking out these things the way I would have you think them out, but you can do it.
I think you should rename it The Complete Idiot's Guide to Narcissistic Abuse.
Complete idiot, yeah.
Well, and you can get
It's called the Comprehensive Workbook for Survivors of Narcissistic Abuse. I'm a little more eloquent than that.
And where can you get the book?
Oh, these are available on Amazon. This book is in digital and audio. And then this is my memoir, Cliff Edge Road. This also is available on Amazon. And I tell the whole story here. And I show what a train wreck I was and how I pulled myself out of it. And
is that also available in audio form?
This is available. No, I don't think I did audio on this one. Digital, but it's a very quick read. People say it's a page turner. They don't even sleep. They just keep going because there's so many crazy stories in it. But you see the effect of childhood narcissistic abuse and how it plays out in every aspect of your adult life and what I had to do to get out of that.
Yeah. Now with the childhood narcissistic abuse, I think it's common in relationships. Joe mentioned before, does a child of a narcissist become a narcissist? And there's different circumstances. You can end up being codependent. You can end up being schizoid. You can end up being a narcissist. Those are sort of the common reactions to a narcissistic parent. In fact, that's how I played Brick in Cat on a Hot Roof with schizoid.
Wow.
Whether it was the full-on personality disorder or certainly traits, that's kind of the line we towed with Brick, because he had very narcissistic parents. But talk about the golden child syndrome and the scapegoat child. I think that's common, and I have seen instances where the narcissistic parent sort of idolizes, and this goes on in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. They idolize the one child. This child can do no wrong. And then the other is a complete scapegoat. And I actually see it in my family, extended family as well. So talk a little bit about that for people that are wondering, why does my mother love my brother so much, but she's so evil to me, because then that would make them feel the mother is capable of love. They love my brother or whatever, but they hate me, so I must be, defective.
Right. This is really important, and I'm glad you brought it up. But let me just say that when you have a parent that has narcissistic personality disorder, the children are mentally ill to different degrees. It creates mental illness, and it creates mental illness even in adult relationships. Okay? It's not permanent mental illness. It can be reversed. In some cases, it's not, because some cases it creates schizoid or, bipolar or something like that. So, okay, the golden child is the child that's chosen for the parent to reflect their perfection on. So they put this child up on this pedestal, and this is who the narcissist thinks they are. They reflect everything off of this child. The child can do no wrong. This child is highly objectified. The child is never, ever loved for who they are, only how well they can please. I was a golden child. My mother told me every day of my life, I love you, what would I do without you? And when my sisters would call, they lived out of state, to talk about their lives, she talked about me. So what does this do? It breeds hostility. This sister, I'm one of three. So the sister above me, 5 years older, when I was born, my mother stopped looking at her and touching her. Never looked at her or touched her again. She was what I call the invisible child. She's the one that the parent just doesn't even care. You have the scapegoat child. The scapegoat child is the dumpster for all the parents. Whatever goes wrong in the family, whatever goes wrong in their person's life, they have to, because they can't take it in, they have to dump it on that child. So for the rest of their life, the child is deemed a loser, a problem, black sheep, whatever. That sticks for a very long time. It's really hard to get out of these roles. But in my family, my sisters loved me, but as we got to be adults, they began to resent me Because when I started doing this work and I got healthy, they were like, you didn't have it nearly as bad as I did. Well, yes, I did. Yes, I did. It was very different. You just didn't see what I went through. But they could never get it. There was this envy and this resentment towards me for having this. I'm an unusual golden child. Often golden children get stuck in the enmeshment and they just want it. I didn't. I recognized at a young age that I couldn't look through the same narrow lens my mother was looking through. I just had some kind of insight and I was able to get out of it at some point. But it was hard because my sisters left town and they left me with her. I was everything to her. I was her everything.
Now, would you say that the abuse can sometimes skip a generation? And what I mean by that, and I think you experiencing this in your own life, would you say that maybe if the narcissistic, let's just say father or mother is now a grandfather, that the grandchildren might not quite understand what you're saying, that I don't want to talk to my parents anymore because they're narcissists, but then your children are like, but grandma and grandpa are so sweet and we love them so much. Like, how could you think that? Would you say that that is a common thing or not a common thing?
Right.
That the closer quarters you are to the narcissist, the more the abuse. But if you're kind of like on the periphery, you're not going to see that type of abuse.
Well, you are going to see it. So I have a daughter and a son. My daughter was my firstborn and she was the golden grandchild. So she took my place. She could do no wrong. My mother would say, oh, she's perfect. I said, please don't ever tell my daughter she's perfect. Please stop doing, oh, but she is. Then I had a son, and he was nothing. He was nobody. My father talked to him like he was trash. And fortunately, he had a grandfather on the other side that was wonderful. So he just navigated to that. But what happens a lot with grandparents, and I talk about, there's a chapter in this book of what to look for. My children knew that I had issues with my parents, but I always told them, your relationship with your grandparents is yours. And, I navigated it when they were young, and when they got to be old enough to write their own cards and make their own phone calls, they did that. They made these choices for themselves. I didn't want to deprive them. But if you are the victim of sexual abuse at the hands of these narcissistic parents, you absolutely cannot allow this. And I tell people, often the grandparents will have a golden grandchild and a scapegoat grandchild. And it's very, very obvious to the children. And I say, if you see that happening with your parents doing this to your children, they can't see them anymore because they're going to ruin them.
So do your children say to you, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about, Mom? Or do they say, I don't see it, she's wonderful?
Oh my gosh. Now they're like, oh, my daughter was pregnant. She said, I don't want to call them. They're going to bother me. They're going to be obsessive. They're going to ask me a million questions. I don't even want to tell them I'm pregnant, Mom.
Oh, wow.
Like, how long can I wait?
9 months, 1 day.
She basically waited as long as she possibly could to tell them because they were going to drive her crazy. Yes, if they, if narcissists give you a gift, they want accolades. Immediately, you're supposed to go, woo, you're wonderful, even if it's just a card. So as my children were adults, my son was in medical school and then in residency. He had absolutely no time. They would call him and he would not call back because he had absolutely no time. They would call and call and call. Then they'd call my daughter. Is he okay? Why isn't he calling? They did the same thing with her. If they called her and she didn't feel like talking to him, they'd call him. Why isn't your sister calling? Is she okay? And if they sent a check for an occasion, oh my God, you better call them immediately because they are chomping at the bit. They're sitting there.
They'll call you before the check. They'll call you before the check even arrives. Did you get the check?
Did it clear?
They do. They keep saying it. Did you get the check? So they have literally driven my children crazy. And my children know they're crazy. So that's only in adulthood. But I didn't do that. They knew. I thought they were crazy. But,
Right.
I was not going to do that to my children. They're entitled to their grandparents, unless something's wrong.
Now, I found you listening to a podcast. I know you have your own podcast. If someone listening to this podcast wants to get a hold of you, why don't you talk about how they can do that, talk about your podcast, and how they can contact you for a consultation on whether or not they're dealing with an alligator.
A reptilian, a monster, an evil person, anything negative. People say to me, Randi, don't you have some soft spot in your heart for narcissists? I say, no. They're like, but they had such a troubled past. I said, so did you. Why are you feeling sorry for them? They're not feeling
Fuck them.
Fuck 'em is right.
Right. You're the one suffering. They're going about their... Narcissists live forever because they don't realize anything bad.
It's true. It's true. They live to like 100.
My mother's 95. They had COVID about 6 months ago. No problem. They healed. They keep going. They're
immortal.
They
Well, as they say in Italian, erba salvaggio no more than mai. Wild grass never dies.
people tell me this.
Yeah, so tell people how they can find you.
Okay, I was going to do that. Okay, so my website is randifine.com, RANDIFINE, randifine.com, very easy. I have a YouTube channel, Randi Fine channel. It's very easy. I put up probably 2 podcasts a week on there, in addition to other things that I do. My website is very comprehensive. There's a lot of great information there, but there's also an area where you can go and see what I do, what my fees are, and book directly from that area. You can, if you want to email me, you can email me at randifine.com. Couldn't be easier. That's pretty much it. My books are available everywhere, but mainly Amazon. That's the best place to get them because you get them quickly if if you have a Prime membership. And that's it. I live in Florida. I see people all over the world through Zoom. Doesn't matter where they are.
Do you see people in person in Florida, or mostly it's all Zoom?
I don't have an office that I can see people in. So no.
Joe, you got anything else for Randi?
I got one last question that just came into my mind. Sure. Is there any distinct differences between if you're dealing with a hetero couple, a gay couple, a trans couple, whatever? I mean, is there something that's different about each one of those that you have to kind of treat differently? Or or a narcissist is a narcissist is a narcissist?
Mm-hmm. I had gay couples who, I've had gay couples, women, men, who are dealing with this with their spouse or their partner or whatever. No, it's exactly the same.
It's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same. I mean, who they love is their choice.
It's almost like they congregate on another planet. They're given the playbook by someone, and then they come to Earth. And they just all act the same way. They have the same kinds of behaviors. And it's so like abnormal to the way that normal people, quote unquote, normal people behave. And it's like, how are they all acting the exact same way? Again, it's like they're all part of a team or something like that. Like, let's go down there and let's fuck shit up.
Yeah, it's our gaslight book. They do. In my book, Close Encounters, there's a whole section of narc lingo, narc speak. And they all have the same phrases. They all use the same phrases. They all
give an example of a couple. Give a couple narc phrases. Give an example.
So, you never cared about me. Why do you always bring up the past?
Oh yeah,
that's a good one.
That's a good one. Nothing's ever enough for you.
Nothing's ever enough for you. You can never be happy. Why can't you be happy? I never said that. Gaslighting. They will say the worst possible thing to you, and when you react, they go, I was only joking. Why can't you take a joke?
Right.
With a knife to your neck.
They will say, I only want you to be happy. That's why I'm doing this. Right. Oh, big one. You are too sensitive.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You aren't remembering.
I've heard a lot of
correctly. You bring up something.
Bringing up memories, huh?
Right. Look how much I've sacrificed for you. And then one of the other things they do is the way they apologize. If you're not looking for it, it may sound like an apology, but an apology will go like this. I am sorry that you took it the wrong way.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
I did something that made you feel bad and I apologize. So they phrase it. So people say, but they apologize. I'm like, tell me the words. Give me the words. Because it's all in the words. This is the thing about narcissists is a lot goes right over your head because it's just disguised so beautifully.
Yeah, they're great at it.
And then they have this circular conversation where you'll say something and they will talk about nothing. Keep going around and you're like, what? I'm not following you. You know, it's, they all do it. And it is the pathology because if you think about what I said about this being a construct and the reason that this false self is constructed, then they're all motivated by the same exact thing.
Right.
Because they're all lacking the same exact thing and they're all motivated by the same exact thing.
This
but it is uncanny.
Yeah, this conversation is bringing back memories of melting cupcakes on a hot August afternoon on a Friday in 2018. I remember it like, where were you? It's my own personal JFK assassination.
And
Miles, you got any final comments for Randi?
Some things stand out in my mind with my clients. I've had thousands of clients, but certain things I never forget. And that is something.
No, can't forget.
Roller pig. That's a
roller pig. They become core memories.
That's
real quick. You know what you said? You don't have anything else for Randi?
I'm pretty good on pretty much everything. I think this was very educational, and it is possible to heal from this, but you got to be on the lookout. Keep your head on a swivel, And I appreciate the indicators that you shared, Randi. So thank you for that.
Another thing, I really want to touch upon before we let you go back to, basking in the hot Florida sun. We came up with the name Roller Pig because that was something that you advised me to do because you almost don't want to treat this person as a person. Like you have to separate, the person's name from who they really are. And that helps in like the grieving process. Like I know that you had said, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, you created a name for your mom. And so this woman that I was dating, it's like, well, we can't call her X anymore. Let's refer to her as something else. And, for reasons which I won't mention on the podcast, we constructed the nickname Roller Pig. But real quick, talk about why you do that.
Okay. So yeah, because there's an enmeshment that you have with this person and you see the relationship in a certain light. And if you see this person as your girlfriend or your wife, you're going to have a hard time separating from that enmeshment of what that meant. Or with a parent, if it's a mother or a father, it's a mother. You can't let go of the fact, but this is a mother. She's got to love me. So I tell people to come up with a negative connotation and call them something different and never refer to them by their name or mom or dad ever again. And as soon as you do that, the enmeshment starts to, you pull away because now she's not your girlfriend. She's Roller Pig.
Yeah, that's how Roller Pig was born.
Classic, Matt. That was the best one. That's the best name I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's the situation that you're actually going to be helping us bring to life on our our show that we're putting together based on narcissistic abuse. That's all we're going to talk about right now, though. But yeah, we'll be in touch, Randi, about all of that and helping us with this show that we're putting together. So awesome having you on. You've helped me so much. I can definitely give her a 5-star recommendation. If anyone is going through narcissistic abuse, go to Randi and, she will help you get out of it. It will not be easy, but that's not Randi's fault. It's going to be because you're so entrenched.
Well, it's obvious you can't do it alone.
No, you can't.
That's the one lesson of today. With everything that we've learned about spotting these people out and figuring it all out and boiling the frog and toasting the pig or whatever, at the end of the day, you can't do this yourself, and don't try to do it yourself.
And another thing, you wouldn't go to a cancer doctor for a broken arm.
Correct.
So you can't go to a psychologist that's not trained in narcissistic abuse, that has no fucking idea what you're going through.
No.
You have to go to someone who is specialized in that.
And it was going to give it to you straight.
Yeah. And
not bullshit around.
And that's Randi. Randi, any closing comments?
There was something I was going to say. Just give me a second. I had a thought as you were saying that.
Did it not have anything?
Forgot it. Gone. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, guys. This is fun.
Oh, thank you.
I love the challenge. The questions. This is fun.
Yeah, this was a great podcast, and so happy to have you on as someone that I've gotten to know over the years. You're a great person, and again, you've helped me so much. So I'm glad to.
Oh, I remembered.
Bring you into the Ruth.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I remember what I was going to say. Okay. When you go to a therapist for a problem you're having, you will be in therapy for years, and you will inch along by millimeters. Okay. When you work with me, see, this is why people are so afraid to get into it. When you work with me, I work very fast. Most people, 6 months or less, are great. They're good to go. So because I dive into the core, I get right at the issue, and we get it out. My goal is not to keep you with me for years and years. My goal is to graduate you and let you go on with your life. So it's quick. I work quick. I work direct. And so don't be afraid to get the help. That's what I wanted to say.
Great.
So if you want your narcissist diploma in 6 months,
Yeah.
go to Randi.
Here I am.
The Randi Fine School, Narcissistic Abuse School of Hard Knocks.
There you go. Beautiful.
All right, Randi, thanks.
Thank you, Randi.
We'll be in touch, and we'll all Zoom again soon about our upcoming TV series.
Without
Love
a doubt.
it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Appreciate
Thank
it. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, have a great day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow.
Okay, that was a great pod. Look at
Awesome.
me. I look like a slob. I'm all...
Look at me. I'm so fucking handsome. It's
I'm the fat bastard now.
a little of that narcissism rubbing off on me right now.
Yeah, not me. The thing
Scal, I see
pasta
you had a few comments.
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah, you dating a narcissistic chick you met on Tinder? What's going on?
I've like everybody else, have dealt with a couple of personalities that were like that, and it is a challenge.
There he is. We haven't seen him the whole show.
Podcast, right? I mean, we had Randi on. I mean, she was much better looking than I was, but yeah, I have had history with some narcissists myself, and realizing it's one of the things that I experienced in my unique situation was this person had broken up with me in their own mind much longer than the relationship actually ended. So they'll keep things rolling along. They'll keep you on the hook. And just like leave you there, stranded, wondering like, what did I do wrong?
As soon as they find another boat that they could leap to, like, you're gone, man.
Yeah, exactly. And like, so they're looking for the rebound. They're looking for the next victim, before.
It's true. They're emotional. They're like emotional predators. And I think that is actually worse than physical. I would have rather been stabbed by one of these women than the methodical emotional breakdown.
Yeah, it's a lot quicker,
Yeah, I mean, they say but if say you're with someone for a year, usually the time to recover from a normal relationship, they usually say it's about half the time. So if you're with someone for a year, takes about 6 months maybe before you can fully recover.
I heard this rule of thumb, yeah.
But when you're in a narcissistic relationship, it's the opposite. So say you were with a narcissist for 6 months, it will take you a year to get over that. And I can confirm that. I mean, Roller Pig was someone that was in my life for about 6 months. But, the emotional shredding, it took close to a year before I was finally like, okay, wow, I'm fully over this. I mean, you're not like totally destroyed for a year, but before you really feel like, okay, I have moved past this, it took double.
It leaves
double
its
the
scars, you know. It's like emotional scarring that's left over, and it becomes core memories.
You have to also learn how to trust people again, because
Yeah.
after having a few of these relationships, who the fuck are you going to trust after
True.
this?
It's like I didn't want to get into another relationship again after that, because I'm terrified that this person is going to resurface in another form, you know, same girl, different face kind of thing. And you're right. I mean, it makes it very difficult to.
I wanted to talk to her about Epstein. I forgot. And the whole prostitute relationship, pimp relationship, which I find fascinating.
It is an emotional manipulation. I thought it was interesting when she mentioned that like men stick around longer, because in the back of my mind, I actually thought, you know, women would be more invested in the recovery process, therapy process. But, you know, there is a lot of pressure put on young men, you know, in today's society, where they're kind of
like, let's put you up.
Yeah, where they're kind of like losing their place in you know, the social structure, right? Where, you know, women are equal to men. I mean, we can establish that, yes, they can perform the same duties, but what is their place in the household? What is their place in society? You know, aside, like a man's worth is kind of like attributed to his productivity. What does he provide?
Right.
That's been all taken away from men right now.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, when everybody makes the same amount of money, you know, it's
Men are no longer the backbone or the provider or the protector.
No.
Yeah, there's no established roles.
No.
The white Christian male is persona non grata, right?
Well, they were showing this video. I think it was in London. This woman is walking her baby, and there's this nut job going around with a knife trying to stab everybody. Now, there's about 10 men walking through this park. Not one of them like goes and clocks the guy. And this guy wasn't like this, you know, he was just like, it's like, go over there and whack this character.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like masculinity is dead.
Yeah. It's like the sense of value and honor, you know, it seems to be kind
But
of
I
dying
think it's
out.
dead because they don't want you to have masculinity. They want to shun it. If you show it, it's toxic, you know?
They want to turn us all into
A third.
third.
No comment.
No comment.
So it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Well, the other thing I wanted to ask her, since we're going to pretend you're Randy,
We can bring her back for a part 2 as well.
was the birth of the OnlyFans page. Now, how narcissistic is that?
Right, exactly.
It's self-absorbed to a degree. Yeah.
I mean, especially like all over TikTok and Instagram. It's like,
Right.
Yeah. To be reductive, we want to talk about equal pay. How come men don't get paid the same on OnlyFans?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's a bit of
I know in porn, it's the women that make the money, unless it's gay porn.
Oh,
Women make no money there.
right.
Well, wouldn't gay porn know you? Two lesbians, that's gay, right? You can make money.
Actually, and I bet you they pay more for that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, technically they do that in straight porn. Like the
Oh yeah. They have like FFM scenes, you know.
yeah.
By the way, I just want to deviate from something really quick and talk about something that
How
is.
could you deviate from porn?
Well, it's just because, you know, I want to just talk about, like, again, this is off topic, but something that is just really starting to irritate me in society. You know, this whole tip thing.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Whenever you do anything, the person wants a tip.
well, you know where that
mean,
came from.
20%, right?
Yeah, girl, like, pours me a coffee, and you feel like a total scumbag if you don't tip, right? You know, so you go up to the counter, you ask for a cup of coffee, you know, that's fucking $5 now. And then she swings the little thing around, and it's like,
ask you a couple questions.
yeah. And it's like, and it's built in 20% tip, 25% tip, 30%.
Well, that's what I like. They put down, well, I've seen it start at 5%.
No, it starts at like 20 now.
Well, I think it's to shame you, the 5% one. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm going to look like a real cheap bastard.
Right. And I feel like it's horrible. I mean, you can't go anywhere without somebody turning an iPad to you
I think
and
the
saying
whole concept
a tip.
of tipping
Yeah.
is absolutely fucked up. It was a way for people not to pay people a wage.
Yeah, it's for the employers. It's like, well, we don't want to pay them. You give them the extra.
You give them the fucking.
And then you feel, like I said, you feel like a jerk off if you like.
Not supporting them.
Yeah,
right?
they swing it around and they're staring at you, and you're like, oh God, I got to leave something, or else I feel like a scumbag. But it's like literally like everywhere you go.
You know what? You're working at fucking Starbucks. Doesn't take a brain surgeon to work at Starbucks, and you're making $15 an hour. When you're putting in the benefits and stuff, you're up to $20 an hour. I think You know, when I was working in a fucking deli when I was 10 years old, I was getting 25 cents an hour.
Wow.
All right? I don't want to hear about this shit.
Yeah, the way I kind of like categorize it in my own head is like if they're providing you a service, like if they're waiting on you,
Right.
where you're taking up space and they're engaged with you,
And they're
throughout the
paid
service.
$2 an hour, right?
Yeah, I mean, irrespective of what you're getting paid, right? Like an Uber driver is waiting on you. You know what I mean? He's taking you from point A to point B, and now he's in a completely different location than he would have been otherwise. Like, yeah, I can understand tipping for something like that, or a waiter who's like sitting at your table and constantly.
Totally. I mean, I used to work in the service industry, and I consider myself to be a good tipper because of that.
Right.
Yeah. I do not like going into a bakery and getting
buying a
cupcake and feeling like I got to leave this person $3 for plopping it in a bag.
Yeah,
Those
and then just
old
leaving
roads
it on a
lead-
warm August afternoon.
All roads lead to cupcakes
All
with
roads
this
lead
one.
to cupcakes.
All roads lead to cupcakes. There has to be something more to this cupcake business.
I want to know the backstory of the roller pig, but not on the
I'll
podcast.
tell you off air, in case she's slithering somewhere. Listen.
I smell a screenplay there. Roller
All right, so let's get off the tip thing. Let's go in. We got to close this out
gotta
soon.
close
Let's
out.
get into Joe Stradamus, the prediction for the week. Now, we record these episodes a little before we release them.
Right.
So last time Joe made the prediction that the summer was just going to be this chaotic
It was gonna
uprising, and now we're sitting in the wildfires of Canada.
Oh, Canada blowing the smog down to New York City. We haven't seen any results from the elections yet. We are seeing candidates.
You're taking my thunder away. Shut
Okay.
the fuck up. I predict that Bobby Kennedy Jr. is going to be a dark horse and is going to come out ahead and take the nomination away from Biden.
Oh, okay. That's a hot take right there.
And it's going to be all behind the scenes stuff because I think within his own party, they don't want him to run, but they got to pretend like they do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just going to be a series of events that are going to push it, and out of nowhere, you're going to see this guy come out of nowhere.
Do you think Biden will campaign for a second term?
No.
Well, he's announced that he wants to.
Yeah, like that's
Announcing
what
a
I've heard.
campaign.
Those are the rumors. Is that he
wants this
considering
face off
a
with
second
Trump
term.
again, yeah.
But I mean, is he actually going to execute on that campaign?
No. He basically works 4 hours a day, if that, they found out.
Mm-hmm.
He starts his day at 12 and he's
only
by 4.
awake 4 hours.
He starts at 12, is in by 4, and has lunch in between.
He
By the way,
works
what
a
the hell
whole 4
happened to
hours?
Works a whole
what the
4
hell
hours.
happened to Kamala Harris? It's like she's
Well,
disappeared
that's
off
the
face
key
of
to this whole thing. Since her likabilities are worse than his, they can't afford to push. If she was likable, they would push her right into.
Yeah, he can't retire. And honestly, it would look.
He's in a catch-22.
It would look really, really bad if the first woman president was a president by technicality.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where you actually have the first woman elected president, they'd have to put that asterisk.
What
to say
made me
elected president.
made me think about this and go back to this is I actually think that Biden is the ultimate narcissist.
Aren't they all, though? All
I think
politicians?
they all are, but I think in his case, it's like, dude, I mean, come on.
You kind of have to be a narcissist to think that you deserve to have that much power.
Well, not only that, but I think like
like a
the
prerequisite.
people that you need to step on and the rules that you need to break and all the shady stuff you need to do to get to that point, shady stuff, to get to that point requires a lack of empathy and requires like, well, I don't care that I fuck this person out of this much money or,
Yeah.
cost this person their job,
It's about wearing masks, right? You go to a community and pretend that you care for a few hours and then move on. And then like, are you really thinking about
Exactly.
what
Like
happened in
yesterday,
this
I saw
small
the mayor
town?
of New York. They got him on camera, knocking on doors, passing out masks. I'm like, oh, this is such a stunt. Like you give a shit.
He's going to put illegal immigrants in Gracie Mansion. Oh, I'll house them up for a little bit there.
Yeah.
Like, give me a fucking break.
You
for
kind of
show.
have to be a narcissist to seek that kind of power. Like prerequisite.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But Bobby Kennedy Jr., dark horse in this race.
Interesting. That is a hot
We
take.
got to keep track of Joe's predictions and see if they come true.
We got these episodes.
He's like our Sylvia Brown, who actually turned out to be a fraud. But I think this was another great episode for the Magnificent Bastards. We got our writer here, Steven. Steven, I don't know if everyone can hear, but I can translate any comments from watching Randy. Any thoughts?
I was taking a lot of notes.
Yeah, I saw you writing away there.
Taking notes.
Actually, the thing you said about the presidents is interesting. I was listening to a podcast about each president chronologically, starting all the way back from Washington. And the point that they made was that every president since Nixon, because Nixon was the last guy to go into the White House thinking he could actually do things his own way.
Right,
And we all saw what happened to him.
right.
So ever since then, Carter on, it's been narcissists. It's been Bill Clinton. It's been actually the one note that I wrote when she said
Skelly, are we going to be able to hear him? Is this sound?
I've turned it up a little bit. I'm using my mic.
Okay.
She said overt versus covert. She mentioned Trump as overt, and I had to put Obama as covert.
Right.
Because he's
Right.
the ultimate covert.
He is the ultimate covert. You're 100% correct.
You know, we love conspiracy theories on this show.
And Clinton's an overt.
Yeah, definitely.
Clinton was definitely
Sure.
an overt. Yeah,
We love conspiracy theories on this show. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that every president is like related to each other somehow, except like one. Like they all come from the same lineage from like London. We'll get into that.
Yeah, like they all go to Harvard or something, right?
Yeah, there's some weird connection that every president has some sort of bloodline connection to each other.
I don't know about
I
that.
don't know about bloodline, but I feel like there, I can see how people who go to certain schools that are incredibly selective and
I got to look deeper into this.
I mean,
Don't
basically-
quote me, but there's something about it.
I mean, they were all non-Catholic until Kennedy got elected. So, I mean, he was the exception to the rule there.
I'll bring that on episode 3. I'll bring some information in.
let's do some research.
But
on
even
that.
FDR was a narcissist because he wanted to kind of, he felt that no other person can do what he did. No other person can keep the country going. He wanted to change the Supreme Court to
He
suit
kept
his
going
ways.
until he dropped.
Oh,
He
he was
stepped
the only
down.
one that he got himself 4 terms.
Right.
It'd be harder to name a president who wasn't a narcissist. Like what? Teddy Roosevelt, maybe? I don't really know. Like
Teddy Roosevelt was a bit of a narcissist in a different way. I think, and if you want to name one who wasn't a narcissist, I would say Jimmy Carter.
really?
Yeah, I don't see him that much as a narcissist.
But you also don't know what he's like behind closed doors.
Fair enough.
really. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of prominent power positions, not even presidents, but CEOs and
You know, the Bushes are all narcissists.
of course
Oh,
big
easily.
big executives. I mean, I think
Oh, well,
sociopaths, narcissists.
I mean, look at a guy like John Kerry. You're going to tell me he's not a narcissist?
I think they all are.
It was after they were talking about the Kennedy assassination, how you can have conspiracies, whatever. The important thing is that everybody that the official story about the single bullet and Oswald, pretty much everybody who's run for president and everyone who's in politics now doesn't accept that.
Right.
So whether it was Oswald or not, the point is that you go into running for president knowing this example has been set. So for a guy like Kerry, who was on the church committee that confirmed a lot of the
Right.
basic suspicions of the conspiracy against it, he ran for president.
Yeah.
It's like he goes from being pointing out that, oh, the CIA killed the president or whatever, and be like, well, sign me up.
Yeah.
We got to do an episode on the Mandela effect. There's a Mandela effect on the JFK assassination too. People just remember it very differently. It's very
Yeah,
interesting.
we need to get Stephen and Mike. I want him on the podcast now. I want to be part of this conversation.
Stephen might be getting him a mic and a little stand here.
Hell yeah.
joining us on future episodes. Okay, we got to wrap this one. We got to cut this one out. Guess that's it. Episode 2. Lisa Lampanelli going to be joining us soon.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's going to be a
That's
good
gonna
one,
be
man.
great.
Flat Earth
one.
Dave coming back to raise hell with his buddies.
Oh, God. I gotta
Flat
figure
Earth
out who I'm
Dave,
gonna bring.
round 2 with Scalino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder who's going to be my backup. Do you believe the Earth is flat, Stephen?
Was it flat? No. Well, actually, when I was in high school, we had astronomy class that was taught by a guy who didn't really know much about astronomy. So one of the things that we completed, he showed us this YouTube video that was like a short film or whatever, a documentary about elucidating all of the components of the flat Earth theory. At least that it was back then, that the moon landing was fake. I think that's what it was about.
Right.
It's about how the moon landing was fake because when they took the picture, there were no stars, and then I had to go and point out, well, actually, it's because the surface of the moon is so shiny it blocks out the stuff. So, did something like that. But yeah. No, I mean, I'm in on some conspiracy stuff, but not the flat Earth thing. That seems kind of silly.
Well, I would say
I'm with you on
I
that.
would say you just haven't looked into it.
I'm with you on that,
Let's-
Stephen. You're welcome to back me up on this next conversation.
Oh, DJ Skelly, you gonna finish the sizzle reel or what?
Yeah, we've got a hot new sizzle reel coming up.
We got a
so
hot new
everybody
sizzle reel coming. We got DJ Scally doing it.
Looking forward to it.
So yeah, let's let him go edit the sizzle reel and let's end the episode. DJ Scally, play some tunes, get us out of here. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like what you hear. Visit ruthstage.org for
Had
all
over
things.
1,000 hits on the first day of the first one.
Yeah, great.
Amazing.
Great traction. RuthStage.org. Check us out.